Hi everyone, welcome back to week 3 of our series Conquer. I hope that by this point you've believed that you and I are more than conquerors with Jesus. Week 1 was Easter Sunday, and we talked about choosing to have faith over fear because Jesus is alive. Last week we learned that we can stand strong through the storms of life when Jesus is our foundation. And today we're talking about conquering our worries by trusting that Jesus is with us, even in the middle of the storm. First, let's read our memory verse. I have told you all of this so that you may have peace in me. Here on earth, you will have many trials and sorrows, but take heart because I have overcome the world. John 16:33. Yes, we can have peace in Jesus, peace that surpasses our understanding. According to the Google definition of peace, it's a stress-free state of security and calmness that comes when there's no fighting or war, everything coexisting in perfect harmony and freedom. And I hear what you're thinking. How can we have peace when everyone around us is fighting and no one is in perfect harmony? With everything going on around us and so much uncertainty about the future, it's hard not to worry. And I know life is stressful and overwhelming and full of worry, and that's why today we're talking about learning how to give all of those worries to Jesus. Today, I want you to remember this one thing. I will not worry because Jesus is with me. We all worry. That's human nature. Something happens that triggers a thought, and before you know it, your mind has played out every worst-case scenario and leaves you full of worry. But in that moment, we all have a choice to make. We can continue to let our mind run wild and feel full of worry, anxiety, fear, or we can remember that Jesus is always with us, that he overcame everything and is bigger than anything we could ever possibly face, and then choose to trust him and receive the peace that he offers. In Philippians, Paul says it this way: don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank him for all that he has done. Philippians 4:6. When we feel worried, we should completely hand this over to God. Let Jesus fight these battles for you. He is there to help you, and he wants to, but you need to trust him enough to let go and understand that he has it all under control. Giving your worries to Jesus is a lot easier said than done. Let's look to the Bible to see how we can do this. Today's story is about Jesus and the disciples being in a boat in the middle of a storm. Let's read it. As evening came, Jesus said to his disciples, "Let's cross to the other side of the lake." So they took Jesus in a boat and started out, leaving the crowds behind, although other boats followed. But soon a fierce storm came up. High waves were breaking into the boat, and it began to fill with water. Jesus was sleeping at the back of the boat with his head on a cushion. The disciples woke him up, shouting, "Teacher, don't you care we're going to drown?" When Jesus woke up, he rebuked the wind and said to the waves, "Silence, be still." Suddenly the wind stopped, and there was a great calm. And then he asked them, "Why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith?" Mark 4:35 through 40. There is a lot to learn from this story. I see it as the perfect illustration of us as followers of Jesus. The boat represents our life, and our first step is to invite Jesus into our boat. You need to have a relationship with Jesus to begin this journey. And when we make Jesus the leader of our lives, he is with us always, no matter what. So, Jesus is in your boat with you now. What next? So we see the disciples in the story overcome by fear and anxiety and worry when the storm hits. And those emotions, we probably would all have been feeling in that boat during that storm too. So what do the disciples do? They go and wake up Jesus. They turn to him and say, "Please take care of us." We need to go to Jesus in our worries, in our storms. He is the one that can provide peace in our lives. So number 1, go to Jesus. I want you to notice in the story that the storm still came even though Jesus was in the boat. A relationship with God does not guarantee that storms won't happen in our lives. But we do see that Jesus is there and he will get us through the storm safely. And then, number 2, trust Jesus to handle your storms. Okay, so maybe you already have a relationship with Jesus. Maybe he's hanging out in your boat and you talk to him occasionally while you're floating along, but you still have a hard time trusting him to handle your storms. Maybe when those storms come up, you're struggling to control your boat. You're getting all soggy from the wind and the rain. You're tired and cold. And Jesus is sitting right there, just waiting for you to hand him the ropes. I can't imagine being there in the boat with the disciples that day and seeing with my own eyes. First of all, Jesus is just sleeping through a really bad storm in this boat. He has no worries because he's Jesus. And here the disciples are freaking out, thinking that they're going to die. But look at Jesus. He's calm. I would hope that at that moment, I would look at Jesus and be like, okay, if he's not worried right now, then I don't need to be worried. But the disciples reacted probably how we all would have reacted. They were super worried. And when they go to Jesus and wake him up, he takes care of it. He shows them that there is no need to worry in the storm because he's got it. He literally speaks to the wind and the waves, and everything becomes calm. I don't know that I can relay how incredible and mind-blowing that would have been. And remember, this is true. This happened. This is not just some story that I made up to teach this point. This is history. And when Jesus calmed the storm, he showed the disciples that they don't need to worry. But that's a very hard thing to do, especially when you're staring into a crazy storm that's affecting your boat. Jesus even points out to them, "Do you still have no faith?" Those words are striking. We need to trust that Jesus will take care of the storms in our life if we will just hand them over to him. Don't panic. Live in the peace that he has for you. If you haven't invited Jesus into your boat yet, today is the day. He's waiting to help you with your storm. Remember, I will not worry because Jesus is with me. Now you might be thinking, okay, it's not that easy to just decide to not worry anymore. And you're right, it's not. The trick is building a relationship with God on a daily basis, not just when storms come, because if it's not already natural for you to turn to Jesus, then it's hard to practice making him your first answer when things are stressful. Our minds aren't working right in those moments. So start turning right to Jesus in the minute anything worries you. These can be very small worries or big ones. He can take it all. So turn to Jesus, ask him to take those worries off of your hands so that you can keep your focus on him. Remember, I will not worry because Jesus is with me.